There are moments in politics that feel like a hinge point, a moment where the old rulebook gets thrown out the window and something new, something raw, begins. We find ourselves in just such a moment today, August 13, 2025. California Governor Gavin Newsom has launched what his team is calling a no-regret strategy, a bold and frankly audacious plan to confront President Trump's aggressive political maneuvers head-on. Newsom is not just talking, he is acting, signaling a fundamental shift in how one of the nation's most powerful Democratic leaders plans to engage in the political battles of our time. This is not about quiet negotiation or finding bipartisan compromise. This is about fighting fire with fire. The core of this strategy is Newsom's conviction that passivity in the face of partisan aggression is a losing game. For years, Democrats have championed nonpartisan solutions and independent commissions, believing in the power of good governance to win the day. But as Newsom and others now argue, that approach has become a form of unilateral disarmament. While blue states were busy creating fair processes, red states were sharpening their partisan knives, drawing congressional maps designed not to represent voters, but to entrench their own power for a decade to come. Newsom's stance is a direct challenge to that asymmetry. This isn't a decision made in a vacuum, it's a culmination of simmering tensions that have boiled over since President Trump's return to the White House. We saw the friction intensify this past June when Newsom openly clashed with the administration over the deployment of the National Guard in Los Angeles. This latest move on redistricting is a significant escalation. Newsom is effectively saying that California, the nation's most populous state and an economic powerhouse, will no longer stand by and watch democratic norms be dismantled elsewhere without using its own considerable leverage to push back. He feels, as he put it, very confident in this path. The governor's message is clear: the era of turning the other cheek is over. His no-regrets philosophy is rooted in the idea that it is better to fight and risk failure than to do nothing and guarantee defeat. As Newsom told reporters, "If it fails, we did what we could." This sentiment captures the desperation and the fighting spirit now animating a large swath of the Democratic Party. They are looking for a champion, someone willing to engage in the messy, high-stakes brawls that define modern American politics. This is Newsom throwing his hat in the ring, not just as a governor, but as a national fighter. To understand why Governor Newsom is making such a high-stakes move, you have to look south, to Texas. What's happening in the Lone Star State is the very definition of a partisan power grab, a raw exercise in political map-making that has set off alarm bells across the country. President Trump and his Republican allies in the Texas legislature are pushing for a new congressional map that would be a masterclass in gerrymandering. Their proposal is designed to carve up communities and create districts that could hand the GOP as many as 5 new seats in the United States House of Representatives, fundamentally altering the balance of power. This isn't just politics as usual, it's a direct threat to the principle of fair representation. The proposed maps in Texas would dilute the voting power of growing minority communities in Democratic-leaning urban areas, packing them into a few districts while spreading Republican voters across many more to maximize their advantage. In a stunning act of protest, Texas Democrats, including Representatives Vince Perez and Gina Hinojosa, have fled the state. By leaving, they deny the Republican-controlled legislature the quorum it needs to legally conduct business, effectively grinding the process to a halt, at least for now, until the special session ends on August 19th. This dramatic standoff in Texas is the immediate trigger for Newsom's action. He sees the Republican strategy as a calculated effort to rig the system, creating a non-responsive government where politicians pick their voters, not the other way around. The Texas plan is not an isolated incident. It is part of a broader national strategy by the Trump-led GOP to use the decennial redistricting process to build an insurmountable firewall in the House of Representatives. If they succeed in states like Texas, Florida, and North Carolina, they could control the chamber for the next decade, regardless of the national popular vote. For Democrats, the fight in Texas feels existential. It represents a form of asymmetric warfare, as one good government group put it. While California has long used an independent, nonpartisan commission to draw its district lines in the name of fairness, states like Texas have been weaponizing the process. Newsom's argument is that California's good faith efforts have been exploited. He believes that if one side is going to ignore the rules of fair play, then the other side can no longer afford to bring a moral argument to a knife fight. The battle for the soul of American democracy, in his view, is being fought on these maps. On Monday, August 11th, Governor Newsom took a step that sent shockwaves through the political world. He sent a formal letter directly to President Trump, an act that was less a negotiation and more of a political ultimatum. The letter proposed what Newsom called a political ceasefire. The terms were stark and unambiguous. If Republican-led states, with Texas being the prime example, would immediately halt their aggressive partisan redistricting efforts and commit to a fair and nonpartisan process, then California would stand down and continue with its own independent commission as planned. It was a direct, public challenge from one of the nation's most powerful governors to the president. The letter was a masterpiece of political theater, designed to frame the conflict in the clearest possible terms for the American public. In it, Newsom declared that if the GOP refused to de-escalate, California would be forced to lead an effort to redraw the maps in California to offset the rigging. This is the language of brinksmanship. It's a political version of mutually assured destruction, suggesting that if one side insists on tilting the board, the other will be forced to add its own counterweights. This move puts the onus squarely on Trump and the Republicans: either agree to a truce or be responsible for escalating the conflict into a full-blown redistricting war. This is not a behind-the-scenes deal. It's a public declaration of intent. Newsom's team made sure the letter was widely circulated, ensuring that its contents would dominate the news cycle. The strategy is to rally public opinion and put national pressure on the Republican Party. By offering a ceasefire, Newsom positions himself as the reasonable actor who was pushed into a corner, forced to consider extreme measures only because of the other side's intransigence. It's a calculated risk that seeks to seize the narrative and define the terms of the debate before the maps are even drawn. The ultimatum serves a dual purpose. On one hand, it is a genuine, if long-shot, offer to avoid a destructive political battle that could further erode public trust in the democratic process. On the other hand, it lays the political groundwork for Newsom's next move. If, or more likely, when, Trump and the Texas GOP reject the offer, Newsom can say that he tried the path of peace. He can then turn to the people of California and argue that they are left with no choice but to act in self-defense. A powerful and persuasive argument in a state that has positioned itself as the heart of the anti-Trump resistance. With his ultimatum delivered, Governor Newsom isn't just waiting for a response, he has a detailed and ready-to-launch counterplan. His proposal is to call a special statewide election this November 2025. The centerpiece of that ballot would be a single explosive question for voters. Should California temporarily suspend its independent redistricting commission and approve a new, legislatively drawn congressional map? This new map would be explicitly designed to counteract the partisan gerrymandering happening in red states. It's a direct appeal to the people, asking them, as Newsom says, to exercise their own power to fight back. The plan is, surgically precise. The proposed new map would be crafted to create up to 5 new, heavily Democratic-leaning congressional seats. The math is simple. If Texas Republicans can gerrymander their way to 5 new GOP seats, then California Democrats can do the same to neutralize those gains in the House of Representatives. This isn't about creating a permanent partisan advantage. The proposal includes a crucial sunset clause. These new maps would only be in effect for the 2026, 2028, and 2030 election cycles. After that, California would automatically revert to its voter-approved independent redistricting commission for the rest of the decade. To get this on the ballot, Newsom needs the cooperation of the state legislature, specifically a supermajority vote in both the Assembly and the Senate. Given the Democrats' overwhelming control in Sacramento and the deep-seated animosity toward President Trump's political tactics, this is seen as a very achievable goal. Political strategists believe that framing the ballot measure as a direct fight against Trump in Texas would make it incredibly popular with California voters. Special elections tend to draw out older, more educated, and more partisan voters, a demographic that leans heavily Democratic in the Golden State, all but ensuring the measure's passage. This move is also notable for the allies it has attracted. In a surprising turn, the nonpartisan good government group Common Cause announced on August 12th that it would not oppose California's plan. For years, this group has fought against all forms of gerrymandering regardless of party, but they now see Newsom's plan as a potential counterbalancing measure against Trump's strategy. Their non-opposition is conditional, requiring the plan to be fair, proportional, voter-approved, and temporary, all conditions that Newsom's proposal appears to meet. This gives Newsom a crucial layer of political cover, allowing him to argue this is not just a power grab, but a necessary evil to save democracy. There is no separating this bold redistricting fight from Gavin Newsom's own political ambitions. Every move a politician of his stature makes is viewed through the prism of their future, and this showdown with Trump is undoubtedly a play for the national stage. With the 2028 presidential election cycle already looming on the horizon, Newsom is working to define himself not just as the governor of a large state, but as a national leader of the Democratic Party. An August 2025 Emerson College poll shows him running third in a hypothetical primary behind Pete Buttigieg and Vice President Kamala Harris. This fight is his chance to break out of the pack. As veteran Democratic strategist Gary South put it, if Newsom succeeds in this gambit, he will become an instant national hero to Democrats. The party's base is hungry for a fighter, someone who is willing to be as tough and aggressive as the other side. Political consultant Christina Bellantoni of USC Annenberg noted that for today's voters, this is not about compromise or making deals, this is about putting up a fight. By taking on Trump so directly, Newsom is auditioning for that role. He is betting that Democratic voters nationwide will reward a leader who doesn't just talk about resisting Trump, but who actually uses the power at his disposal to do it. However, the risks are just as significant as the potential rewards. There's a fine line between being seen as a champion of democracy and being perceived as a self-serving politician playing the same cynical games as his opponents. Some political operatives have warned that this effort must be carefully managed to avoid looking like a Newsom special, a plan designed more for his own advancement than for the good of the country. If the public views this as just another power grab, it could backfire, making him look like a hypocrite and damaging the very good governance brand that California Democrats have spent years building. Ultimately, Newsom is attempting a delicate balancing act. He is trying to save American democracy from what he sees as a rigged system, while simultaneously rocketing his own political career into the national stratosphere. He hopes to achieve a new balance of power, one where Democratic-led states can effectively deter partisan gerrymandering by threatening a proportional response. If his plan works, it could reshape the national political landscape, providing a new playbook for how to combat partisan extremism. For all Americans, this fight matters because it raises a fundamental question. In a deeply divided nation, is the only way to save the rules to be willing to break them?